Hello, I'm Niels Schwekendiek. I'm the Artistic Director of the Helsinki Chamber Choir, and with me here today is Timothy Page, who's written a piece for us which we're going to premiere in a concert on Saturday the 16th of February. And Tim, welcome to the Helsinki Chamber Choir.
Thanks.
So before we talk about your piece, let's just talk a little bit about you, where you're at. We've known each other for a bit more than 10 years now. I believe this is the fourth piece we've done together. And we met originally when we were both studying at the Sibelius Academy.
That's right.
So where have you been in the intervening years?
In the intervening years, I've been mostly here. I finished my studies around 2008 and officially got my diploma in 2010. And in the meantime, I've been in Helsinki composing, but just recently I began doctoral studies at University of Chicago this spring, 2013. So that's where I am.
Great, so a little less time in Helsinki these days. Are you missing it?
Well, it's great to be back, even for a short time, but I have a plan to kind of be in two places at once and keep my base here in Helsinki, as it were, and have, study periods in Chicago.
Great. So, Between Hell and Earth, rather imposing title. John Milton, Paradise Lost. How did you come to choose this piece?
Well, Paradise Lost is a work that I've wrestled with a number of times over the years, not in a musical sense, just trying to get through it, and it's a work that's made a big impression on me. And for a long time I had the idea that I'd like to set some of the text, and when this commission came along, this seemed like the perfect opportunity. And I honed in on this episode in the epic. Paradise Lost, of course, is an epic rendering of the story of the Garden of Eden, essentially. In particular, Satan's attempts to get revenge for being banished to hell.
Right, and the whole poem starts with Satan in hell, doesn't it?
That's right.
Deciding to take a trip back to Earth and then eventually to the Garden of Eden.
Right. Actually, his legions of fallen angels that had risen up against God, they have this meeting and they kind of hash out possibilities, how they can better their situation after being defeated by God and banished to hell. And they come up with this idea that the best way to get revenge would be to ruin this new creation that God is rumored to have brought about, in particular the human race. And so Satan volunteers to go to Earth to take care of this business. And so for the setting, I honed in on this moment in the epic where he has to pass from the gates of hell to Earth. And in between hell and earth in Milton's theology is this abyss of chaos. And so my piece is essentially Satan's journey through chaos, the moments just before where he ponders the abyss as it opens before him after he's emerged from the gates of hell. And I was captivated by this idea that there could be something worse than hell, because this is kind of the case. Satan, hell is familiar territory, it's no fun, but once he emerges from the gates of hell, all of a sudden he's confronted by this vast unknown, which is in a way more terrifying than hell itself.
Right, and at the end of your piece, Satan is actually in dialogue with chaos, isn't he?
That's correct, yeah.
So, and your piece ends as he's about to reach Earth, is that correct?
That's right. Yeah, I should mention chaos is both a region the netherworld between Earth and Hell, but it's also the name of the the king of the region, essentially. Chaos reigns over this netherworld, and so Satan, during his journey to Earth, he comes upon the throne of Chaos, and they have a dialogue.
And Chaos, in your version, actually speaks with two voices, a high voice and a low voice, right?
Yeah, he has this consort in the poem, which is led by a character called Night, and so Night is sort of echoing his voice in the dialogue.
Because you write for a high soprano, a very high soprano, and then a bass with a very wide range.
Yes.
But that's not even the most striking solistic feature in the piece, because you've written the part of Satan for a tenor who also sings in the countertenor range.
Right. I don't know. I guess. Yeah, I was interested in the idea that Satan would have this really high voice, but on the other hand, Satan is he's able to morph into all manner of different forms, and to have a singer who can cover the entire range.
There are these enormous leaps. I mean, over 2 octaves, I think, at one point, which which our soloist has to negotiate. It's quite spectacular writing, I think. So a kind of depiction of chaos. Of course, we all, when we think of music and chaos, we think of the beginning of Haydn's creation. But I think we're going to be faced with quite a different sound world. 16 solo voices and electronics. I haven't heard the electronics yet at this stage of the rehearsal process, because they're still in the making. But give us a rough idea what kind of electronics we can expect.
So the electronics are used as their sound material exclusively things that have come from the human voice, and manipulations of things that have come from the human voice. The majority of what I have in the electronics is long vowel sounds that were pre-recorded by the singers that I've then manipulated in a very specific way. There are microtonal chords that are exact and very precisely controlled glissandos to and from these microtonal chords, for example. I have some I call it this spectral pitch shifting device, where you take a harmony, it kind of gets crunched, and the intervals follow a certain process.
Yeah, and it's interesting because also in the vocal part, which of course I have already seen, the singers also imitate certain sounds that we associate with electronic music, granulation, for example. You have the word atoms gets split up into lots of tiny little fragments, and this kind of thing. So it kind of works both ways, the dialogue between the live voices and the electronics.
I hope so. When I use electronics, I like it to be as integrated as possible into the sound world, so that it doesn't sound like a foreign element. We'll see how well it works in this piece.
Okay, Tim Page, thank you very much for being my guest, and the Helsinki Chamber Choir will be performing Between Hell and Earth, Saturday the 16th of February 2013 in Helsinki at the Sibelius Academy Concert Hall.